What's up, podcast world? Chad Belding back at you. Another episode. This life ain't for everybody. I'm so excited about today's episode, the content that we're about to bring to you. Thank you all so much for the subscriptions, telling your friends and family, giving us ratings and reviews, and please keep supporting the partners and sponsors that support us. You've been hearing some great artists come through the podcast lately. We have several more coming. Today's episode of This Life Ain't For Everybody is brought to you, our friends, right there in Lynchburg, Tennessee. Enjoy it responsibly. Jack Daniel's, the most American spirit company of all time in the history of the world. Anheuser-Busch is right there, and I'm not afraid to say that, but Jack Daniel's, they are the one and only Sour Mash Tennessee whiskey. They support everything we do here, our outdoor lifestyle, our culture, being a provider and pairing our wild game meals, ducks, geese, antelope, sheep, and elk, and mule deer, and whitetail deer. We pair it with whiskeys. They got a lot of different flavors. The apple is becoming a staple at our household bar, our backyard bar. So remember, enjoy it responsibly. Never allow underage drinking, and please support Jack Daniel's because they are as American as it gets. And you guys are going to love our guest today. She is a true troubadour. She has a voice that caught my attention so long ago, and I don't even remember if she remembers the first time I met her. She will after I talk to her about it. We've been sharing a lot of pictures. Her name is Heidi Newfield, and she's literally one of my best female artists of all time in country music, any genre of music. And you guys have heard me say this, you girls have heard me say this, I'm very critical of singers, and I know I'm very opinionated, and I'm probably like a little bit too opinionated, but when you hear Heidi Newfield sing, she is the bomb, and it's so natural. Miss Heidi, how are you?
Chad, that's like the best introduction ever. I feel so special right now. Thank you for that.
You are special. You like I don't know if you remember the first time we ever met, but it was the Rockstar Country Throwdown Tour in Palo Alto, California. It was you and Jamie and Montgomery Gentry. And
I actually do remember that because we did, there's not that many great venues in my area I'm from Northern California.
Yep.
And so born and raised in Sonoma County, California. So whenever I'm playing around Palo Alto being the Bay Area, and that was a really cool, if I'm not mistaken, with Montgomery Gentry, God, I miss those guys so much. I hadn't talked to Eddie in a little while. I need to, but, if that it's like an amphitheater.
I think the one that we were at, and I know for sure it was Mountain View, and it was designed.
Yes.
It had a lot of inspiration and design from the Grateful Dead.
Yeah, it's got a vibe. It's very where you guys sit is very steep.
Yep.
And then it feels intimate. Feels like a really intimate amphitheater kind of thing. And I do remember that show, and that was the first time we met.
Yeah, and I was backstage.
Wow,
I was backstage with Arliss Albritton. Do you remember that name? He was a manager at the time, and he had introduced me to Jamie and Chris Powell, who was Jamie's drummer.
Yes, I do remember Arliss.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then Arliss walked me up to you, and you were getting ready to go on stage, and you're like, honey, I'll be right back. And then you came off stage, and we had a drink, and you were so nice to me. And I was like, and then a year later, that was like right before my daughter was born. And then like a year or two later, you were playing a big show in Reno. And then that's the next time we were backstage with you and got to hang out. And
yeah.
And
I remember that very well. You had your little daughter with you.
Yeah, Alyssa, and she's
Alyssa.
She gets inundated with Heidi Newfield songs, and she listens to, all of the stuff from like 2006. I think is Alyssa's favorite. 2007, when you I don't know, you had the huge hit with Johnny and June, and
that was 2008.
2008. So yeah, it's about 2008. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that
record came out.
And she wasn't even born yet, but when she was born in 2010, and we were listening to that a bunch. I got to ask you a question though, with your style and your culture, Heidi, and your influence. What is the perfect stage?
If you see a little nugget come across here, that's Augustus.
That's Augustus. That's the pup. What is your ultimate stage setup for the way that you like to listen to music, country music? And what I mean by that is that you are so diverse in the guitar, the vocals, and you play the harmonica, which I love it. Like I always think of Mickey, and I'm sure that everybody thinks of Mickey when they think harmonica, but you can rock the harmonica. I want to go into two-part question is, what is the ultimate stage for Heidi Newfield? Is it a steel guitar, a pedal guitar? Is it a bass? Is it a stand-up bass? Is it a Willie Nelson style stage? And then tell me about the harmonica and what is so special about that instrument. And is it kind of just controlling your diaphragm, almost singing into it? Because the way you sing seems like it would be kind of the same air pressure and air presentation as a harmonica. And the reason I'm asking, Heidi, is that I really I can blow a duck call, I can run a goose call, and I think that it could kind of be similar to a harmonica. And I think I'm going to get into it. So talk to me about your ultimate stage setup first.
Great questions, Chad. Well, so, I've been asked the question a lot, like, what's your favorite type of venue? And the answer to that is, it rolls into your question. I really love the variety, the variation of a gritty, sawdust, like where you can smell the sawdust on the floor kind of, and the old beer kind of soaked honky-tonk. I love that feel. I like to shake things up and play some of those places sometimes, especially out in Texas and of course here in Nashville we're known for those as well. And I love old theaters. There's something so special about when you walk into an old theater that you find out was built in the mid to late 1800s, and you find out that Frank Sinatra played there, and Charlie Chaplin played there back in the turn of the century. Kind of, it's like I love stuff like that, historical venues, and then I love the big raucous festival kind of where everybody's wild. So I like the variation, and the same goes for the answer to your question with regard to the band. My favorite variation of a band would be my variation now, which is my bass player is a woman who is a very, very groovy chick, and she plays upright bass like she's bad. She's badass. She's and to look at her, you wouldn't expect that's the instrument that she would walk up and play. And that's what I kind of love about her is she's this cute little, almost nerdy blonde. And then she walks up to an upright bass and just she just gets mean on it. She also plays great electric bass. So half my show is upright bass stuff, a lot of thunka. And then half is electric stuff, and it's pretty rocking. Of course, electric guitar. And I cannot live anymore when I put this new band together for this new record that we're going to talk about at some point here that's coming out in August. I kind of was like, do I want to hear more piano or do I want to hear more steel guitar? And in the past with Trick Pony and then on my own stuff with like Johnny and June, I always had a piano player on stage. This time I wanted a steel player that was more of a utility guy. So I have a steel player up there who plays great lap steel and also some mando, a little bit of dobro sometimes. So love me some pedal steel. Acoustic guitar, I play that. I also have somebody playing with me when I'm blowing harp because it's really hard for me to harmonica for me is a little different I attack the harmonica a little differently than some harmonica players who are singers and up there playing guitar as well. I like to be focused on the harp when I'm playing it. So it's really, I don't use like Chris Christopherson or Bruce Springsteen or Neil Young, who mainly play a whole lot of what we call straight harp. So that means you're playing the harmonica in the key of the song. And it's a little less physical. I play a lot more. I like straight harp, but I play a lot more what we call cross harp or blues harp, which is where you're playing a fourth up. So if you're in the key of A, you would count the key of A, B, C. You'd play a D harp, and that's why we bring so many harmonicas with us, and because we have so many keys. So when I play the harmonica, your gear is really important. Let me finish your question. Drums, obviously, got to have great drummer. I have a killer drummer who's really good at he's very dynamic, so I think that's one of the biggest things I've learned over the years is you got to have a dynamic show. You got to be able to learn to bring everybody down. People don't want to be on 98 the whole time. You want to be able to bring them down so that you can bring them back up. And your tempos, your all of that, your volume, everything. It's got to be dynamic. And so your drummer is your engine. And so drums are really important to be able to have a guy who, is going to feel that. So my rhythm section is pretty great. My bass player Kirby and drummer Duran they're fantastic. Steel guitar player who can play, like I said, multiple instruments. So if it's something where we get really, really acoustic, he can pick up a mandolin, and it just depends on the song. And then electric guitar, I kind of like, my guy he's so good that he can flat pick, he can bluegrass flat pick, and he's really fast, but he can also kind of has got that Southern rock kind of feel. And that's a really hard combination to find. So I actually have two guys. I have Dave Barber and I have Kyle Bruick, and Kyle is kind of like the long-haired Arkansas boy that walks up and he just naturally has a lot of grit to his playing. He would, his inspirations go from everybody from Slash all the way to, Waylon. And so he's kind of somewhere in the middle there. And I love that edge. And then Dave is much more, he can pick up an acoustic. He's just a wicked flat picker, really, really very detailed guy. Great slide player. So that's my configuration there. And then I've got the harp covered. And then once in a while, I'll bring out a piano player that's playing also with I really love B3 with a Leslie, so that you've got that big churchy sound. And so that's the perfect band to me. If you're talking about full band, it's pedal steel, upright bass, drummer, lead guitar, acoustic, harmonica, and B3 and Hammond.
It's a lot. And it's like, I kind of see that in your stage show when you're talking about that roller coaster effect of bringing the crowd up, bringing them down, being able to get them mid and touch them and pull at the heartstrings. And I think that's what's really clever about watching somebody like you that can not just be very energetic, but you're telling it, you have an experience going on. You're telling a story as you present your show. And I think that is what keeps my attention. I think that there's a lot of cleverness and wittiness that goes into something like that, to where you kind of like you're in a negotiation with the audience and you're like, oh, well, if you want that, well, then I'll hit you with this kind of an attitude. And I think that inspiration comes from, like, when I think about Heidi Newfield, I've always thought of, like, and I started this conversation about how picky I am I'm really picky about female singers. And I don't know why I developed this skin about them, but yeah. I grew up with Waylon and Merle and Willie. And then I was introduced.
Try, baby.
Yeah. And I was introduced to Dolly, and like Dolly is like my all-time go-to of all time. But in my top 5, I've always said it's Heidi Newfield, Dolly Parton, Jennifer Nettles, Miranda Lambert. And then the other one is right there with Wynonna and Alison Krauss, which is so funny because I could listen to Alison Krauss sing the phone book, but I just love the way that Wynonna had like that Mary Chapin Carpenter kind of just like that I don't know what she had. It was just so much different than Naomi. And when the judge would hit it right, I would be like, man, she can sing her ass off. And she really can. Yeah. So it's always between her and Allison for my top 5, but I'm really critical of it. Like, I think Miranda's
that's great company to be in. I'm honored to be.
Yeah, and I mean that, and I think that Miranda does the same thing with her storytelling ability, and I also like it because Dolly and you and Miranda and Jennifer is a different, I don't know Jennifer. So, and I've never done a lot of research. I just love her voice.
Very cool.
But the other ones are all unapologetic. They were always like Dolly has been quoted lately of saying stuff like, I know I look fake from the outside, but get to know me. I'm a really fun person, a really sweet person. I'm like, well, I don't know. Like nobody cares about that part about Dolly in my opinion, but she just always seemed really raw and really real to me. Like here's what you get kind of attitude. Yeah. And I'm not saying that other female singers didn't do that for me. I just think that what you did in TP, and then as you went into your solo career, there was like a lot of really clever lyrics. There was a lot of cool storytelling, and I think songwriting is a very underrated talent that you have. Because you don't get thrown around in a lot of songwriting conversations that I've been in, but I'm always like, well, listen to how clever these lyrics are. Listen to A Night Like This of what this story is being told, and then go into Johnny and June and listen to a lot, I don't know how many songs you've written, but it just seems to me like that's a talent that you need to be known for. And I think that that's important because right now I'm on a big songwriting kick in my life. Is like, this has got to be brought to the forefront of how strong so much music that does not get played on quote unquote country radio. And it's like, I'm like pissed off. I got a chip on my shoulder because I want to hear Brent Cobb on there.
Me both, man.
Yeah. And I want to hear Heidi on there, and I want to hear Brent Cobb, and I want to hear Adam Hood, and I want to hear Jamie Johnson, and I want to hear the guys that know how to deliver a country song. And it's not cubicle country, and it's not tailgate country, and I'm not saying that everybody can't have their career, and I respect that, but I just think that songwriting, I honestly think that Merle and Waylon would roll over in their graves if they listened to a lot of what's on the radio today. And I think that is a slap in the face to the true art of country music. And that's just my opinion. I've really been trying to use my platforms, Heidi, to say, look, y'all don't forget about Joe Diffie and we lost him. Y'all don't forget about what Travis Tritt did to us for years. And then don't forget about what Heidi Newfield did. And don't forget, it's because everything's so forgetful with the way country music is now. And I'm like, I refuse to do that. It's like, I'm not going to let my heroes die just because somebody has their finger on the button in the business of Nashville, that they can say that this is country. It's not country. If it's pop, let it go be on pop radio. If it's country radio, then dang it, just let it be country in your country. So anyway, that's kind of a soapbox deal to me, but I just wanted you to have some common ground with me as far as like, I really see like the true underlying message in an artist. And I want to keep getting better at that and keep digging peeling the layers of that onion back of like, here's who Heidi Newfield is. If you all don't understand what she did for country music, you need to know now, because she's getting ready to put out this new album, The Barfly Sessions, and it's going to be badass. And it's going to remind us like there's true music being like literally prepared for us every day. It's at our fingertips, and it's not going to be readily available on the radio. So let's have a platform that we can say, here's what she did for us. And she's in this group of unbelievable artists that get ready for this new album, so that's kind of where I'm at, is like, I have the baddest ass musicians in the country come on this podcast because I want to be able to say, dude, if you've never heard a Brent Cobb song, then y'all are missing out on what true lyrics are and what songwriting really is. If you've never heard Heidi Newfield write a song and sing and play the harmonica or the AKA the harp, then y'all need to do it. And that's what I think people have gotten away from, is because it's too easy to hear about the chick in cut off jeans on a tailgate and the bonfire. And that's got its place, and I hope that doesn't like tell you like, oh, I'm putting you in this like group of people, Heidi, that's forgotten about. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that country radio is not very country to me.
Well, Chad, I think there's a huge reason why we're friends. It's an obvious reason why we're friends. I don't. I think if you look back at the history of music, and this is not just country, but this is our good rock and roll. If you look at the history of music going all the way back, there is an ebb and flow to the polish and the grit, about every decade or so. And if you notice, just since I'm a country singer, proudly, even though I sing the blues and I just sing music is the way I put it. But but I grew up, singing hard, I grew up on the good stuff like you did. And, in a house full of traditionalists and on a horse ranch, horse and cattle ranch. And so rodeo life and, that lifestyle that I grew up on, lent itself to country music. So I'm proud to say I grew up that way. And I'm proud to say that that's the music I grew up on. So, and all the way back, I mean, my parents went way before their time. They were listening to stuff like, the guys that started it all off, Jimmy Rogers and Hank Sr. and of course Patsy. And it was me at a young age that kind of brought in the blues to the house, and then the really good rock and roll, from the Stones to Aerosmith and the great bands of the 70s that my oldest sister turned me on to. Mom wasn't all too happy about that. But going back to your point, Chad, it's I would be lying to you if I told you that it's not really disheartening, and painful sometimes when you've spent your whole life working on a craft and a style of music that you love so deeply and so dearly. Writing that the lyrics that you write and you put together, there is two ways to look at writing a song. There's the emotional aspect of it, and then there's the actual roll up your sleeves kind of craft of it. And those two things oftentimes have to sort of kind of meld together. But it all starts with the song. So none of us get to do anything unless we write and or find great songs. So the songwriting aspect of things is a quintessential part of this whole thing. Without great songwriters like John Prine and Guy Clark and I mean, the list is very, very long, but Harlan Howard and Dean Dillons and so many of the people that a lot of us here in Nashville who hold country music dear, we look at these songwriters these certain songwriters as like, the aha, these they're royalty kind of. And Dolly would be in that as a songwriter. Loretta would be in that list of the early guys who came along that just wrote songs that were so authentic. They were truly writing about their upbringing, their life. Loretta wrote songs about Fifth City and because she was literally living that with her husband, and she was out running the fair circuit and doing what a lot of women weren't really, it wasn't popular for women to do. So that authenticity has run very deep in country music, and those roots, whether you're from the mountains in North Carolina or whether you're from the Bakersfield area or whether you're from, really, doesn't matter. Country music calls out to, and you've heard this before, so I don't want to be a cliche, but it calls out to what's real for you, your roots, how did you come up?
But I also think, Heidi, that
what did your grandpa teach you?
Hold on, Heidi. I think that you're different though, because I think that you had the same outlook of, and my friend Ben taught me this, and you tell me, and I want you to continue, but you wrote songs when you were, and I don't saying that you do drugs, but when you were stoned or high or sober or sad or happy, the good songwriters like Guy, which we're going to get into because I just discovered Guy, which I'm self-admittingly that I discovered John Prine late in life, which I'm so thankful I did because he brought a lot of inspiration to me before he passed.
As long as you discovered him, that's all that
matters.
And
then I discovered Guy Clark. I didn't discover him, but I was turned on to him. And then I was like, when I heard this song, Anyway, comma, I love you. And Brent Cobb, who I keep bringing that name up because he's really important to me. He says that that's probably the best country song ever written. If you listen to the way that Guy Smith wordcrafts. So my point in telling you this is that you just always came across as that raw person that was going to write about if you lost a husband, if you lost a fight, if you were happy as hell, if you're all of that stuff was going to go into a song. And I think that that's what you're saying with those great songwriters like who you've mentioned is that's what they did. They weren't just being paid a 9-to-5 job to write. This was their life. And I'm not saying that every songwriter's like that. There's great songwriters out there today, some really good songwriters, but I just don't understand how it lost its place in the real country songs making it to the next level. And that was my point is like, how do they not? Because I don't think Any Way I Love You would make it to country radio today.
No.
I just don't think it would.
I think that there's a, when we're talking about songwriters, there's such a big group of people that we could pull from, that you and I both could pull from. And I could name a couple of guys that you might not be turned on to yet. And, you'll go look them up and you'll be like, you're going to call me and go, oh my God, Heidi. And you might even turn me on. That's the beauty of music is it's subjective. What I like may not be so-and-so's cup of tea, and what, what you like might not be this guy's cup of tea, but we're on really common ground here. And at the end of the day, I think you brought it up earlier. I think it's about being authentic and being unapologetically so. You have to just, when I started out with Trick Pony, my parents raised me just always, manners, just to be, I've always cared about what I like to make other people happy. I like to bring the joy out in other people. I appreciate people with good manners. I love it when somebody takes their hat off for you or opens a door for you. I do that as a woman. I'll open the door for other people. I'm always respecting my elders. I just was taught those what I think,
respect.
I wish that our millennials and our kids today all were taught with the same, were brought up with the same sort of, kind of rules, so to speak. But it all flows back to what we're talking about. And so you pull for the people that are real. And I'm like you. I really like people that are stylists. I like people that don't sound like anybody else. They're not trying to sound like, when I go out to sing and play, or write a song or whatever I'm doing, I'm not trying to sound like Tanya Tucker. I'm not, as much as I love her. I'm not trying to sound like Winona. I'm not trying to sound like Shania. I'm not trying to sound like Leanne Womack or anybody else, because I don't know how to. I've always, what I sound like is what I sound like. And I may not be everybody's cup of tea, but I guarantee you, if you give, it's kind of like if you give me a shot and you take a listen, what you're going to, what you get is what you see, and what you see is what you get on and off the stage.
Yeah, I get that. I totally
and I like
agree.
That in my fellow friends and peers too. I like to see that when I see the same in my friends that do this for a living as well. So, and I think, talking about country music not being country music today, going back to that, that's such a touchy subject, Chad, because I live in a purist house. My fiance is a picker and a singer and a country singing fool, and a producer. And so we have these deep conversations about exactly what we're talking about. And a lot of my friends, are in the business, and we have these conversations. And there's so many people who have been around for a minute, that it's really easy to get jaded and kind of almost mean-spirited, and not be pulling for the new guys as much, or the new girls as much. But maybe because they're coming from a little different place. They were raised up a little differently than you were. Their songs are a little more pop edged and that type of thing. So I really made a point more lately than not to try to put that aside and not be a hater, and to try to support the people I really like, that I genuinely really like, and especially us women out there who are having a really tough time getting airplay. Particularly country music's having a hard enough time getting real country music getting airplay. Now try being a woman doing that. And I've never been one to be like, oh, woe is me, I'm a woman. You're typically you're not going to hear that from me, but that's a real issue. And it really is, when you look at the statistics, and percentages, it's really, really, disgusting how few women get played on country radio. So that being said, and that's been an argument for many years, but when I was telling you about the polish and the grit and about how music, the flow of music, the ebb and the flow of music, if you look back, let's start with where country music was in the 60s. We were going through a kind of more of a polished phase. We had Owen Bradley, and we had the orchestral sounds, and we had we brought all the big backgrounds to even Willie Nelson. He was being produced by Chet Atkins, and Chet would bring the studio full of these beautiful background singers and all these amazing pickers and so forth. But besides Willie's core original band, Mickey and the guys, he would fill it up with the orchestra, and he was trying to kind of build this big sound. Did the same with Patsy Cline, and many others. So we had kind of country music took a turn from its really early incarnation to into more of a polished sound. And then along came the Outlaws, and everything just, like, it shattered. I mean, that was the first platinum record. If you listen to that music, it was as raw and as on the cutting room floor and as real as the day is long. And it changed the sound of the day. And then boom, everything kind of shifted, and people were cutting more of that. Then you heard the Johnny Paychecks, and you heard everybody else that was just cutting with a steel guitar, and like the basically the combination of the band I just explained earlier on. That's pretty much what was going on, and it was on the cutting room floor with no overdubs, no bells and whistles. You wouldn't even dream of having a loop. They didn't even know what that was back then. And I didn't know coming up, and you probably didn't either, Chad, how lucky we were to grow up with that music. I had parents that's what they played. That's what was on in our house all the time. When I would go in my bedroom and I'd put on some rock band or something, or I'd be listening to, because I got into the blues, and I'd be listening to Lil Walter or Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf and stuff like that. My mom would come bang on my door, and she'd go, "That's not country. What's going on in there? That's not country." I mean, that's how hardcore we were. And I used to get mad when I was a kid, but now I chuckle at that. It's such a cool way to grow up. But so where we are now fast forward to where we are now, and what we've gone through is this era of I have literally been in a writing room with another writer, a co-writer, and I pick up my guitar and I've got an idea. All right, because you either start with, typically, maybe you've got an idea, a hook, a general place you're writing towards, or maybe you've got a melody in mind. And that melody naturally sounds like it needs to say this. So you start writing. So I pick up my guitar, And I got this idea in mind, and I'm starting to write. And my co-writer over here, Joe Blow over here, pulls out this machine, sets it on the table, and proceeds to spend, I don't know, the next 45 minutes listening to what I'm playing, and then like hitting a beat player and spending the next 45 minutes not even paying attention to me in the room, but wanting to find a loop so that he can then put a loop to what I'm playing to. So then we can start writing this song. And I'm like, it was infuriating to me. And I know that that is huge. And whoever writes like that today, they may hear this and go, may be offended by that, because there's really an art to it. There really is. And I'm just not gifted in that department. But it was just disheartening to me, because I was like, let's write this song together. That's why we're here. We're not here to put a beat together, or, we're here to put a melody with a lyric, and that's going to move somebody somewhere in the near future. So, country music is going through a spell right now where, unfortunately, the business aspect of it, which is the corporate aspect of it, which is radio, which is no longer run by private radio stations. There are very few private radio stations in the country anymore at all. Used to, 15 years ago, 10 years ago even, actually, you had stations all throughout the country that were privately owned. And so that program director, who was from Des Moines, Iowa, well, he knew that he was in, the Midwest. He knew his audience. He knew a lot of cattle ranchers and corn and farmers and ranchers that were all around him. He knows his audience, right? So he knows what they want to hear. And he's listening to his phone calls and people writing in and what they're saying. So he's playing his audience what they want to hear. Used to be that there was that all throughout the country, and for that matter, all throughout the world. That's gone now. There are literally about 3 people, and I'm not exaggerating, that are programming the entire country. So this guy may be in Santa Monica, California, and he's going to decide what these 45 stations all throughout the country are going to play on their radio stations. And they're big stations. So he gets to decide what they're going to play. And that, when you add the type of music that's being made along with the corporate aspect of it, people are getting spoon-fed the same 12 songs over and over and over again. And so it makes me sad more than anything. The first emotion I feel is not anger so much as just, it makes me sad. It's disheartening, because there's a whole generation or two of kids that are coming up that think that that's country, because they haven't been exposed to this other stuff that you and I are having this conversation about. So what I pray happens is one of 2 things. Either that takes a shift again, and we go back to the grit and the realness and the authenticity, which could happen. But personally, I don't think we will go backwards. I think that what's going to have to happen is we're going to have to open up a new chart, an entirely new, almost like a new platform that is called traditional country. And it opens up for people like myself, and who basically right now, I've always loved all kinds of music. So I'm an Americana artist, and I'm proudly consider myself that, because I love all music. I don't just love country music. I love all music, and I sing a variety of music. So I feel like, that's what's going to have to happen, is a new platform is going to have to open up in order for there to be room for these program directors to have their stations and program for their actual audience. I know that's a long way to go, but that's what's going on.
It makes total sense, and there lies the problem, in my opinion, Heidi, is that, we're not talking about somebody that loses their prime or loses the ability to write a song or deliver a song or entertain a crowd. We're not talking about a baseball player that plays 20 years in the major leagues and his body can't hold up. He goes into the Hall of Fame. He goes and does speaking engagements. He might become a commentator. The bottom line is that he's not forgotten by baseball because he's in the Hall of Fame and he had a great career. As in singing and the art of country music and Americana music and Southern rock or the Allman Brothers and what they did and the art of songwriting, and then the ability to stay relevant would be a lot better and a lot more transparent if what you're saying was going back to like, hey, why is Heidi Newfield not on the radio? Why is somebody that you just named? How in the freak could Leanne Womack, who would have to be in my top 10 she is amazing. Like, you're telling me that fast, you're saying that when the Outlaws came in the 70s and it transitioned into the 80s, and at the end of the 80s, the Hat Pack started, and you had your Chestnuts and your Tracy Lawrences and your Sammy Kershaws, and that was when Garth started to hit. You're telling me, I'm not saying this to you, but you're telling me as a radio, as iHeart or as Sirius XM and all these program directors that can literally just put a pop song in here and say it's, and try to brainwash somebody, or try to not brainwash, but try to condition somebody like this is country. Well, it's people like me that go, wait a minute, you're telling me that Chestnut and Travis Tritt and Tracy Lawrence and Heidi Newfield and all of these people that and Leanne Womack, they were just making #1 hits 8 to 10 years ago. You're telling me that you couldn't put them in this genre of country music? Because that is where the whole problem lies, is that Americana and country can go together. If Heidi Newfield says, I'm going to go out and make a rock record, well, that's fine. You can do that. But Aaron Lewis did it. He came from Stained and he made country records. You can do that. The problem is that, in my opinion, is that why can't they be on the radio? Why can't Heidi Newfield be right there? I guarantee if you said, hey, Miranda, what do you feel about Leanne Womack and Heidi Newfield and all these badass women still being on your country radio station that you're played on? Because Kerosene is already played on prime country. Miranda Lambert is not prime country. Heidi Newfield is not prime country on Sirius XM. They're country music, so that goes on country music radio. It doesn't have, the highway shouldn't just mean, oh, if you were born after 1983 and you write songs like this. I don't even know how many #1s Chris Stapleton has, but it's not many. And that's amazing that he can be who he is and write the way he writes and deliver a song, and he kind of maybe saved country music traditionally a little bit with what he did on stage with Timberlake that night. I just look at it like,
yeah, that was a game changer right there.
You can't tell me that Chris Stapleton wouldn't want those people that I'm naming on the same radio station that he's being played, because now he is in a class of country songwriters and country musicians. And I just think that country radio has gotten away from that. And there is no way that anybody will ever persuade me that you haven't been forgotten because you are in this time frame. I understand that there's an ebb and flow, and I understand that people are going to listen to new things, but it's country music. If you're in your 40s and you can write a great country song and sing it, there's no reason why you should have been forgotten. And I'm not saying that you were. I'm just saying that many artists are not being played. And when I turn on country radio, if it was country, I would have it on more. But there's a reason why I don't listen to it, because it's not country music. So I'm just simply saying that there's no way that you can persuade me, Heidi, that you can't write a country song still and sing it as good as any female on the radio. You can't persuade me of that. And you can't tell me that Leanne couldn't. And maybe Leanne's happy with where she's at and she had her hits and she can go play a theater and do her thing.
She's cut one of the coolest records
it was
that
awesome.
she's ever cut with this last record that she cut. It's escaping me right now. It's got a long title, and she's smoking a cigarette on there, and it's just like, you can listen to that from start to finish, and it's very different for her. She got out of town, got out of Nashville, and cut it elsewhere. I think she went to, I think she actually cut it in Texas, if I'm not mistaken. But bottom line is, at the end of the day, Chad, I totally agree with everything you're saying in that. What's interesting is that all the people that you've mentioned, like, I just did a thing with Travis Tritt not long ago, and all these great people, Garth and Trisha were there, and Clint Black was there, and it was literally like a 90s and early 2000s family reunion with some Opry members thrown in there, and we all had the best time. It was so much fun, and it was actually a tribute. It was not a tribute. It was basically a benefit for John Barry, who was battling cancer, and we all came out, and everybody showed up, and we filled up this place called the City Winery here in Nashville, and it was a 4-hour show, and nobody went home. Now, normally, there was buses in the back and so forth, and normally people go to their buses and then they're not watching. Everybody stayed and watched everybody else's set. Everybody, Leroy Parnell goes, "Hey, Newfield, can I come up and sing on blues or and play slide on Blues Is My Business with you that's on this new record with me with Delbert McClinton?" I was like, "Get your butt up here and bring Lisa with you to sing some background, and Radney Foster comes up to me and says, "Hey, will you Heidi, come up and sing harmony with me on I'm In. Let's go. Let's do it," which we did on the Opry not long ago at the Ryman. So what I'm getting at is that a lot of the music that you're talking about, that was such a great era, a lot of, I'm in my 40s, and the record I've just made and the music I'm making now and where I am as a singer, and my comfort zone, I'm not trying to please the system thing anymore. That's so far gone in me. I hate, it's the old give a damn busted, man. I just want to write and play the best music I possibly can and surround myself with good people. And, I kind of have a no asshole rule on the bus and around. So everybody's kind to each other. Everybody's nice to each other. Everybody enjoys what they're doing. And that includes, everybody from my manager to the radio guy that's working my stuff to Americana and Roots Radio. And then if country picks it up, then that's great. But we're not pushing it to country. We're kind of doing almost the Stapleton effect that hopefully this is really kind of, I'm just laying it kind of out there and being brutally honest, but it's kind of like this. Hopefully it's so cool and it sounds so good to some of my friends at country radio that are relationships I've made over the years, that they pick it up and play it. But we're not chasing that. And Americana is this home that I have to work to. Now, don't get me wrong. They don't Ashley Ann too, they don't just open their arms to you because you had some country success and you were, in the 2000s and people know your name in country music. In fact, it might even be the opposite. That might even hurt you in Americana. You have to prove yourself. And it's a different ball of wax. But the thing I love about it is the freedom. Americana to me is taking the place of 70s radio. And I was a tiny, tiny kid in the 70s, but I remember turning on certain radio stations and hearing Johnny Cash. And then I would hear on certain stations where I grew up anyways. And there was you'd turn around, you'd hear Johnny Cash, and then you'd hear an Aerosmith song. And then you'd turn around and hear Dream On. And then you'd turn around and you'd hear Merle Haggard. And then you'd turn around and hear Loretta. And then you'd turn around and hear a Rolling Stones tune or something like that. It was it was just great music. It was a mishmash of a mashup, if you will, of great music. And that's kind of what Americana is now. When you turn on a good roots radio station now, you're going to hear blues, straight up hardcore blues, which I've got on this record. That's unapologetically, unequivocally blues. And then you turn around and they'll play something that's so traditional country that you go, it melts your face off. It's so good. And Then they turn around and they play something that's more singer-songwriter-y, kind of folk kind of feel. And it's like, you've got this mismatch of kind of music. And I love that. I love the fact that you're not hearing the same song over and over again. They play to their audience. So they'll take my whole record that has 14 songs on it, the Barfly sessions, and each Americana radio station will go, my audience, they don't really like country all that much. So we're going to stay away from I Could Fall for You, this Bakersfield thing that Jim Lauderdale's on. And we're going to stay away from Wrong Side of the Bottle. That's like a full on honky tonk. And we're going to stay away from this, but we play more the blues and the more edgy stuff. So we're going to play, The Blues Is My Business. And we're going to play Bring This House Down. And we're going to play, and they each play to their audience. And so your whole record gets played across the country. And that's kind of it's an old school thing that would take place, but it's a really refreshing,
it's a great
kind of place to go.
That's the word I would have used.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of where my head is. And I really do hope, I really do, Chad, I really hope. And deep down inside, I hope that my friends at Country Radio will pick it up and find some things on there that they go, oh my God, I got to play this. I've got to, and just because of memories and relationships and things that you've done together, shows you've done for them, and hopefully just because they really dig what you're doing, and they actually put it on the air. So, but going around and trying to please any one type of thing anymore, it's just not my bag. And I think that's what's so cool about guys like Jamie Johnson and Chris Stapleton did it. I mean, has done it, and he's just done it off of sheer talent. And there's so many people out there that are ridiculously talented that, like you said, I mean, you said it best. You said it right off the top, that aren't getting played on the radio. But I think there's one key to all of this, and that is I'm in my 40s and I feel like I'm doing my best work, even though I'm very proud of the body of work with Trick Pony. I'm very proud of the memories made. I'm very proud of my solo work so far. I've never stopped doing this for a living. I've never stopped touring. I've always been on the road. Just because people haven't heard me on mainstream country does not mean that this isn't what I do for a living. So it's funny because sometimes, I'll go home to Northern California and I'll be home for like a holiday or something, and I'll have like my uncle will look at me and go, so what are you doing? What's going on with you these days? Like as if I'm working at a bank, and I go, well, Uncle John, I'm still making music and I'm touring. I actually still do this for a living. So I think a lot of the names you mentioned that we've both mentioned here, they're as good or better now than they ever were because they're seasoned and they really don't give a damn. And so when you walk out and watch their show, it's better than ever. And so that's where I feel like I am in my career is I'm much more comfortable in my skin. I'm much more, I don't get freaked out about the small stuff. I don't sweat the small stuff, and I don't quit. And so I think that's the one thing that resonates with me is this is what I do for a living. I'm going to die being a singer-songwriter. This is what I do. I'm never going to turn around and be an accountant. I'm never going to turn around and, this is what I do.
And if you're that dedicated and passionate, and if you're that strongly of an advocate for this art and Americana and country, you are country. You can tell me until I'm blue in the face again. You can sing the hell out of a country song and write it and play the harmonica and guitar and entertain a crowd. You are country. So that's I guess it's really neither here nor there, because I think that the radio stations would be much better off if I went to a country station, I would rather hear you and Jason Isbell, who are Americana, than I would most of the country music playing today. Like I could listen to Isbell every day.
Me too.
But he's country.
And
He's got
talk about a guy who can turn a phrase and is a great guitar, very underrated guitar. Like I think a lot of people are learning what a great guitar player he is. And then his wife is over there, just like, you know, part of the Highwomen and one of the fiddlingest, you know, she's awesome. There's so much great music out there if you search for it. And once this strange time that we're going through, this pandemic and this too shall pass, you know, and I do think that we will get back to live music. I do think that people still hunger for that. And, you know, I have no doubt whatsoever that that we'll be packing, you know, that I'll be back on my bus with my band, packing places and playing music for a living. I don't know when exactly that will be. I can't put my finger on it, but I know that will happen again, because I think people like you and I, there's way more people like you and I who love live music and support it and want to go out and see it and experience that show. So eventually that will come back, just like they want to go to a football game or a baseball game, you know, that me included. You want to go and experience, you want to be there. So as much as awesome as, and I'm grateful, I can't believe I'm saying this, because I hated Facebook and Instagram and all of that when it first like hit. I thought, this is so, it feels like a text version, like instead of a phone call, you know what I mean? It feels like you're like it's it was a hard sell.
It's not
for
as
me.
authentic. It takes the authenticity out of something. But now it's a great way to reach your fans, right?
I'm so grateful for it, and I'm extremely grateful for it, because going through this for the first and hopefully only time in our business, I pray we never see something like this, you know, again. But it's been a saving grace. It's been the one way that I've been able to, because I've got this record coming out August 28th. And the whole reason we kind of pushed the release date back was so that, because it was originally June 5th, and we pushed it back because I wasn't going to be able to tour to promote it. And we thought, well, maybe by the end of August, you know, there'll be some things opened up again to where I'll be able to be able to play some venues and be able to tour and bring this music to the people. And I'm still praying for that. I'm still hoping, you know, that's that becomes a reality. But in all honesty, it may not be. It may be very slow, and people might, you know, start this whole thing getting back out there, like dipping their toe in the water very, very slowly. And so I have to be prepared for that. And thank God for podcasts like yours and Facebook Live type things, and just the opportunity to still reach an audience and grow a new audience, you know, people turning their, you know, their kids on or their friends on to my music that they may not, you know, not have been familiar with before, because they didn't know who Trick Pony was. They weren't even born yet. Or, you know, so that's kind of is awesome to me, is that, you know, the goal is to keep your you know, amazing loyal fans that were there from the get-go, and to keep them and to make them proud, but to grow your audience and to build it and to turn people onto it. And you do all that by doing a couple things: just making great records that matter, writing great songs that are unique, and doing it in a way that is all your own, and not quitting.
And I think that your work ethic is, you know, it's a testament of the kind of person you are. I just hope, you know, maybe it is just let bygones be bygones. And that's like what people say is country music's going to do what country music does. And I guess maybe it is a waste of breath to say, hey, don't forget about these people, because maybe Tritt's fine. Tritt sells out 150 shows a year and he still has a great loyal audience. And you sell out, you got a great, loyal, enthusiastic audience that will do anything to go see Heidi Newfield play. I'm just simply saying that it'd be nice if country radio played the guys and girls that are country. That's all I'm asking. I'm not asking that much. It's like being a kid with Santa Claus. Santa, I'm not asking for that much. Just bring me a castle. Just bring me a castle. I think that you have an awesome mindset and outlook, but I would really like to get inside your head someday and be like, Heidi, how many nights have you had to grab a bottle and just take the top off and drink from the bottle because of how pissed off you've gotten about the way the music? I would like to have that talk someday when it's right. But I think that what we do is this. We've just talked almost an hour and 15 minutes, in which was...
Have we really?
Yeah.
Has it gone by that fast?
Yeah, it's almost 12:15 my time, 2:15. So what I'm saying is this. I slated a certain amount of time because I really want to get into the music, but I knew that I would get down this rabbit hole of talking to you about country music, because you truly are a great artist and you're just a great voice of true country sound. And I really think that songs that that Trick Pony did, I really think A Night Like This is what turned me on to a lot of what became, a fascination with female country artists. It was that time of my life to where it was always Dolly, 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 Dolly. And then all of a sudden there was females that I really started to be like, man, this is good stuff. This is really good, authentic country music. And I'm a country music guy. I'm a country western guy. I don't ride a horse and I don't pick a guitar, but I live the country lifestyle. I live off the land.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I just kind of always had this really particular taste in country music. And I think that we need to spend the next May, June, July, August, at least doing one episode a month, if not more, up to you and your management, of getting people to know about Barfly Sessions and what's getting ready to drop, and the talent and the genius that went into the songs, the lyric, and maybe even singing one or two here and there to get ready for this. I want to do my part in making sure that our audience has a legitimate opportunity to hear Heidi Newfield. And that's talking about Trick Pony. That's talking about Johnny and June. That's talking about the solo stuff. And now that we got all of my beef with country music out of the way, now I think that we go down, now I think that we get on another episode of next week or whenever you're free and say, look, instead of worrying about what Chad's worried about, instead of trying to change the way things that are they might never change, let's concentrate on the optimistic Chad and Heidi of here's where the music is. It's still freaking awesome. It's really effing awesome. It's another word that starts with an F that I'm not going to say. It's really strong. And let's talk about the history a little bit. And then let's go into showcasing the Barfly Sessions and what's getting ready to happen for your fans around the country and other places of, like, when you come out and see Heidi, she's going to take you through this entire experience, and it's going to bring you up and it's going to bring you down, and you're going to hear love songs and you're going to hear party songs, and you might hear Poor Me. You might hear what a clever song title and what a clever twist on the word poor me. Like, yeah, I am feeling sorry for myself, so pour me one. Like, that is badass. Like, that's cool stuff. And I think that you've been a part of a lot of really cool country music songs, country music lyrics, country music performances. Let's get into that next time, if you will. And then I want to get into promoting Barfly.
I appreciate the support so much. You don't even know. And happy to. I know I was just kind of following your lead as far as subject matter and so forth. But hopefully, your listeners, hopefully that might kind of help them. This conversation might help them understand sort of how the wheel turns a little bit more. And sort of your beef with it and my beef with it and all of that. But at the end of the day, man, they're really, I just don't walk around with a big chip on my shoulder about, damn it, they're not doing this and they're not playing that. I think if there's anything I'm peeved about regularly, I want my women supported a little bit more. I want to hear more of my girls on the radio.
Well, let's get some of them on here with you. We just had Haley Witters.
Absolutely.
Haley Witters is a badass, and we talked about you. Like that. Let's get her on. Really? Yeah, like she's really good. So I'm all about it.
That's awesome.
I would love to help you in any way that not that you need my help. I'm just a true fan, and we have an audience, and I want to make sure that when they hear us talk about Heidi Newfield, they're like, oh yeah, she's as badass as Chad always says she is. And that's all. That's my only goal. I know that you've already made California proud. You've already made mom and dad proud. You might need to remind Uncle John once in a while, like, hey, dipshit, I'm still out here singing. I'm still rocking.
Yeah.
Like, you want to see my Prevost that's out back. Let's go party. But I think that all we can do is, you're right. The one thing I've learned from today in this short hour and 15 minutes is, look, let's just keep putting the positive message out there that Heidi Newfield belongs on country radio. And if she's not going to be there, here's where you can find her, period.
Absolutely.
And I'm ready to do that.
We're all still out here making music. Every single person we've talked about on this show, everyone that you've mentioned, everyone that I've mentioned that hasn't passed away, when we were talking about some of some of the greats, they're still making music. They're actually still out there making records and still, kicking ass and taking names. And that's what it's all about. And so, like I said, the music is there to be found for those who want it. And I personally feel like that there is an audience, a huge audience all around this country who, whether they're horse people and rodeo folk, whether they're hunters and fishermen like we are too. I'm all of the above. I love all of that. And I want to talk with you about hunting a little bit at some point too, because I know that's something we hold in common. And but I mean, like whatever your lifestyle, whatever your hobbies and so forth are, or however you were brought up, there's a country lifestyle that kind of goes with this brand, that goes with this feel that we're talking about, goes with this music, albeit traditional country, albeit with a little blues flavor, albeit what, singer songwriter doesn't really matter. Good music, resonates with that authenticity. I think there's an audience out there that is jonesing for,
I guarantee it,
that kind of music. And so, it's out there to be seen and heard and bought, and those records are being made every day still, just as much as they ever were. So, that's a cool thing to think about, and it keeps me going, and it'll come back around.
It will. You watch. And I can't.
There'll be a door open somehow.
I can't wait. I can't wait till this record comes out. I can't wait. Like I just wish that I had a nickel that every time somebody goes, you know what? I agree. Like, or they'll say it before me. Country radio sucks. And I'm not saying that to disrespect anybody that does country radio. I'm just saying that we touched on it today. I think it's going to come back around. And my point in saying that, Heidi Newfield, is that when you mention the rodeos and the fairs and the community events and the farmers and the ranchers and the cowboys and the PBR and the hunters and the fishers and the providers and the conservationists, there's a lot more of them than you think. Not you, but I'm saying, and I would bet you 95% of them would tell you exactly what I said today to start this conversation. We're going to continue this conversation. I will get off of my soapbox about what I think country radio should be, because I really don't have any right, because I am not a record executive and I'm not working for Vector Management, and I don't have any,
what you like.
I have no experience. I just know that when I play Heidi Newfield at one of my backyard rendezvous with 80 to 100 people with a Traeger mill and a cold Busch Light or some Jack Daniels on the rocks, every single person in that audience loves it. So let's take a risk and get her and the people that deserve to be on radio, that trailblazed this, that made country music famous again and popular, more popular than it ever was in the past, even with the Outlaws, even with Hank Sr., even with Patsy, all of them. You can see that there was a huge explosion of country music, and that's why I think your rock stars and your rappers that didn't make it in rap and people that didn't make, they all came here because this is where the money was and this is where the popularity was. And that's fine. There's a melting pot, but let's keep country music country. Let's continue this next week or the week after. I'll get with you and figure out our next one. I want to get into the barfly sessions. I'm so excited about it. I'm going to get off of this and I'm going to put on a Trick Pony song or a Heidi Newfield solo song. I got about a 20-minute drive and I'm going to rock it. Heidi Newfield, you can check her out. You can find her music on Spotify, iTunes. Just hit me up with a direct message and I'll lead you in the right direction of a Heidi Newfield playlist. And we're going to keep rocking Heidi. She's the bomb. She is a badass singer, songwriter, harmonica player. We're going to have her back here at This Life Ain't For Everybody. This episode again was brought to you by our friends at Jack Daniels. Enjoy it responsibly. She could sing the phone book. She has the voice of an angel with a little bit of rasp to it. Like she smoked 3 cigarettes, had 1 shot of whiskey, and it's so beautiful. Heidi, I appreciate you. Talk to you soon. Y'all stay safe out there.
Thank you so much. And in the meantime, I'll see you on Facebook and I'll see you on Instagram and we'll talk on the phone. Yep. All right?
You guys, that's Heidi Newfield. I can't wait.
Thank you so much.
I'd rather be poor living off in a hole than rich as hell without a soul. Life on earth.